Have you ever discovered someone was quietly plotting with green beans? My grandparents raised 5 kids, 12 grandkids, and a lifetime of family traditions. But one day, years after my grandpa passed, we uncovered something so absurd, so perfect, it left the whole family laughing, crying, and in awe. He hated green beans, and he found the most brilliantly petty way to get revenge. If you love stories where ordinary people pull off extraordinary, satisfying acts of quiet revenge, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Like this video, comment below with the pettiest thing someone you know has done, and stick around, because this story proves you don't need wealth, power, or fame to deliver justice. Sometimes, all you need is green beans. Growing up, our family wasn't just close, we were inseparable. My grandparents were the heart of everything. All 5 of their children stayed within a 10-mile radius of their house, and as the oldest grandchild, I got a front row seat to this whirlwind of love, chaos, and tradition. My dad ran the farm, beef cattle, pork, the works. Meanwhile, my grandma's domain was her garden. She didn't just grow food, she orchestrated a family-wide distribution network. The women of the family would gather at her kitchen, canning mountains of fruits, vegetables, and meats that would sustain us all. And Grandpa? He did the heavy lifting, literally. Every jar of canned goods she intended to keep was sent to the basement, and he dutifully carried them down, even if it meant enduring something he didn't like. Because here's the thing, Grandpa absolutely hated green beans. He would politely, patiently, and repeatedly asked Grandma to can fewer of them for their personal stash. His reasoning? He didn't want to eat them. He loved her, respected her, and still he carried the jars to the basement like a good husband. But she never listened, not once. And so, for decades, he hauled green beans like a martyr, muttering under his breath, quietly enduring this tiny, constant annoyance. Then July 2000 came. Grandpa passed away. It was devastating for all of us. He was a pillar, a man who carried our family's burdens with strength and humor. Over a decade later, we celebrated what would have been his 100th birthday, a milestone that made me realize how much he lived on in our traditions. Grandma followed in March 2011, leaving the family's house, basement, and memories behind. Shortly after Grandma's passing, a few of us, 6 of us, actually decided it was time to clean out the basement. Years of storing things from multiple families had turned it into a maze. Old furniture, boxes of decorations, and shelves of canned goods from every year were stacked with a kind of organized chaos only Grandma could have created. And then we found the first jar of green beans. At first, it was a funny coincidence. Oh, look. Grandpa's least favorite, someone joked. But the jokes kept coming, and so did the jars. A crate here, another under the shelf, then a stack in the corner. By the time we were done, we were staring at about 2,000 jars of green beans, dating from 1982 all the way to 2000. 2,000 jars, 2 decades of suppressed vegetables, quietly tucked away by the man who hated them most. I couldn't stop giggling. The others looked at me, puzzled. "What's so funny?" my aunt asked, her voice tinged with concern. I just shook my head and laughed. "Grandpa did this," I said. She frowned. "Why do you think that?" "Because he hated green beans," I said, barely keeping it together. "He hid them so he wouldn't have to eat them." The room fell silent for a beat. Then everyone exploded in laughter. Suddenly, all those years of hauling jars, enduring meals with unwanted vegetables, and silently grumbling seemed hilarious. Grandpa had found the perfect loophole. I remember standing there, in that basement, sunlight filtering through the small window, 6 of us staring at a sea of green beans and thinking about how clever he had been. He wasn't angry, vengeful, or cruel. He was brilliant. Quietly, subtly, he had created his own small victory against a minor but relentless injustice. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just about green beans. It was about agency, ingenuity, and playful rebellion. Grandpa couldn't change Grandma's mind directly, couldn't protest without consequences, but he could take matters into his own hands. And he did. We spent the rest of the day cleaning, sorting, and laughing until our sides hurt. When I asked, "What do we do with them now?" it wasn't a question, it was a challenge. How do you even begin to deal with 2,000 jars of canned green beans, some dating almost 30 years back? Turns out, the answer came slowly. Over the years, the family decided to redistribute them among Grandma and Grandpa's children, and eventually the grandchildren too. Every time I moved around the country, I'd check in, curious. Had the jars been eaten? Shared? Forgotten? I'd moved back home from Houston, Texas, and shared the story with my aunt again. She smiled, a little nostalgic, and said, "You know, the last of the 1999 green beans was finally eaten just a few months ago." I paused. Almost 2 decades later, Grandpa's subtle victory had lingered, touched generations, and become a family legend. The absurdity, the cleverness, the quiet rebellion, it had endured. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. Revenge doesn't always have to be explosive or dramatic. Sometimes it's patient, sometimes it's quiet, and sometimes it's hilarious. Grandpa's revenge worked on multiple levels. On the surface, he simply avoided eating something he hated. But on a deeper level, he left a legacy, a story of ingenuity, patience, and gentle defiance that continues to connect our family. 2,000 jars of green beans became more than just vegetables. They became a testament to his wit, his perseverance, and his humanity. We laugh about it now, but I still feel a sense of awe. Grandpa's revenge was perfectly proportionate, harmless, satisfying, and unforgettable. He didn't hurt anyone. He didn't complain endlessly. He simply found a way to tilt the balance in his favor, and in doing so, taught us all something about clever problem-solving, patience, and family bonds. Sometimes, revenge isn't about anger, it's about winning quietly on your own terms. Grandpa's story reminds us that the most satisfying victories are the ones that leave everyone smiling, wondering how on earth it all happened. Life doesn't always require dramatic gestures. Sometimes it's the small, brilliant acts of subtlety that leave the biggest mark. If this story made you laugh, or made you think about the clever ways people get their quiet wins, hit that like button, subscribe for more jaw-dropping revenge stories, and comment below. What's the most hilariously petty act of revenge you've ever witnessed? Share it with the world, because sometimes the best revenge really is green beans.